welcome everybody to sunny San Francisco. A little bit of drizzle, but this morning at 8 o'clock when I got to the city, it was a beautiful day. So those people that have come in from out of town, you've come into a nice October San Francisco day. We're going to be talking about candidate experience on the small phone. Or in some cases, the iPhone 6 is a little bit bigger, or if you've got a Samsung, a little bit bigger again. But really about the candidate experience of what your candidates go through and some of the things that you may want to think about when it comes to setting up your mobile strategy. And not mobile recruiting strategy, but how you're giving someone outside your company view in on a small handheld device. So we're going to be talking about that. So Jesse and I will be zigzagging today. I have the clicker, so we're going to have to do this backwards and forwards thing. And I've been told I'm not allowed to go off stage, so that might be, I might go right to the edge. So let me tell you a bit about me. My name is Brad Cook. I work for a company called Informatica. We're the leader in the data integration space. And we've been around for 20 plus years on the stock market. And we're a 3,700 person company in 28 locations. And the unique thing about Informatica is when you think about data and the explosion of data that's going on the mobile platform, we get impacted by that daily, and so do our customers. And what that also means is we are in the fastest growing software industry space today, and that's the data platforms. From that, it means we're also in the most competitive space for talent, whether it be enterprise software people, developers, QA, UX, whatever you call the biggest challenges in high tech, we're in it. So we compete with all of the big boys, both here and in India, because we have a large center in India. We're also a cloud vendor. So we call ourselves a big data vendor because we provide big data solutions to customers. We're also a cloud company. We provide the #1 app on Salesforce. And if you're here last week for Dreamforce, we're the #1 app on Dreamforce's marketplace to provide cloud products to our customers. And some interesting things as a company, for 8 years in a row, we've been awarded the best support organization in the industry. And we have a renewal rate, for those people that have been in the services world, a services renewals rate of 96%. So we have a deep, deep knowledge of our customers, and we want to retain those customers. That philosophy flows into our candidates as well. So that's a little bit about Informatica.
And I'm Jessie Weezy with Express Scripts, and we are a pharmacy benefit manager and a mail order pharmacy. And we serve the prescription drug needs of 1 of every 3 Americans. We've got 30,000 employees roughly, primarily in the US, but also in Europe and Canada. We process 1.4 billion prescription claims annually, shipping 53 million of those directly to patients' homes via the mail. So a lot of volume. We are Fortune 20, and we have kind of a legacy of research and innovation, and we're really known as a leader in our industry in terms of analytics, research, and actually, most recently, we're named to the world's most innovative companies list by Forbes this year, and we are #1 in our industry.
Very cool.
So, by show of hands, who thinks that they have a pretty good candidate experience from end to end? Okay, and who thinks that they have a pretty good experience, but trends in technology are changing so quickly that they're not quite sure if their experience is quite as good as it once was, and maybe they need to be doing some more things, but not quite there yet?
How come all hands aren't up on that one?
Okay, so I think we can all relate to this photo. You have a candidate who's about to jump through 2 hoops over this little fire into a black hole. So I think we've all come in contact with candidate feedback like this throughout our recruiting careers. But ultimately, regardless of where you are right now, your candidate experience is now being put to the test on a mobile platform. So even if you're not there, the candidates are there. So this presentation today is about looking at how you can be maximizing your experience for the mobile platform and helping your organization to get there in a way that suits your unique talent needs.
So who believes this is them? Not many hands. Wow. How many people here have applied to their job or someone else's job on a mobile phone? Everybody's hand should go up. I will say that because that's one thing I get my recruiters to do. especially when they start, is go and apply to one of the jobs on the career site so you have a better understanding of what your candidates may be going through. So whether you have a mobile plan in place or not, I would still throw it back to you to go and apply to see what that really looks like for your candidates.
And just to kind of support this idea of the candidate experience and how big of a focus is being put on it, some of you guys may be familiar with the Candies or the Candidate Experience Awards. These started 3 years ago, and it's a competition that helps companies to enables companies to benchmark their experience and improve that experience. So through candidate surveys, you can kind of find out how are we doing, where are we falling short, where are some opportunities. And even if you don't think you're going to win the award, if for no other reason, participating in this to get the data is something that I think Brad and I would both suggest. This is our second year doing it, and I think I learned a great amount just from even reading the application and like furiously taking notes of this is what we need to be doing. So yeah, this just speaks volumes to kind of where we're going and where you need to be thinking about.
There was 200 customers participated in the survey this year, and the reason we're telling you this is coming to the crescendo of why mobile and data is important. 200 customers applied for the Candy Awards this year. 163 of them went through to the second round, where they actually go out there and actually push a survey. It's a 45-minute survey to candidates. 95,000 candidates replied to that survey. 95,000, that's a lot. And the majority of those people didn't get the job, but they still invested 45 minutes. So the value that this gives us back as a TA team is absolutely huge, because it really helps you drive into where some of your candidate experience issues could be. So who thinks that having a mobile career site, and I wish I had my phone with me, but who thinks a mobile career site is a luxury or a necessity? Who thinks this is a luxury? Wow. Okay, I won't ask the second question. It's actually different, because I think some customers some people that I've spoken to in some industries, they actually think it's a luxury and something that they don't need. I know what was interesting when Jesse and I were putting this presentation together, even though we're in completely different industries, healthcare bio versus high-tech software, what all boiled down to, we have exactly the same issues. And I would probably say we all in this room, if we had a collective discussion, it's probably all of the same issues that we're having. So it really is, for me, a necessity. And some of this is recent data from LinkedIn. The two things here that really jump out to me is, I've been on a mobile platform for nearly a year and a half, nearly 2 years. And a lot more candidates now, based on this, are coming to your career site in some way, shape or form on a mobile platform. And my hypothesis is they're coming to you or me because every night we send out a nightly job alert, and people pick up their phone and they look at the job alert and they go click, and they goes bounce. They're not on a desktop, so they'll now bounce over to something that needs to be mobile applied. So that's driving a lot more traffic back to the career site. And the second one there is the bottom one is a lot more people are now applying on the mobile platform than ever before. It's certainly a big jump from what it was last year, and I'm certainly seeing that in my data as well. The other area there, and I'm not sure whether these slides are being shared later, but I'm sure they'll be on the website. The other thing is, people are viewing them from their inbox. That's absolutely a change that's happening there. But look at the difference between active and passives. And my philosophy is, everyone is an active candidate when you have the right message, whether they start off passive or not. You're going to work for the company, you just don't know it yet. And if you're putting something in front of someone on their mobile phone that's usable, then that will draw them back in. And the other one is, a lot more people now are both passive and active, are applying to jobs online. So who here has a mobile apply? Good, okay. That's a good number, because last year, and I've done this presentation a few times, the number was a lot smaller, a lot smaller. So that's interesting as well.
So the volume is getting more and more crazy. There's in the past 4 years, increase in 1.3 billion smartphones. So I think we could say the phone itself is no longer a luxury. I mean, it's more commonplace than it ever has been before. Average 2 smartphones for every 9 people on Earth. More than half of job seekers have said that they've looked for jobs from their mobile device. LinkedIn is seeing half of their traffic roughly coming from mobile. And then half people say that they would have no problem leaving your site or going to another employer's site and not coming back if they had a poor experience on mobile or it just wasn't optimized for mobile. So pretty significant here. And officially the race is over. So in the past 2 years, the growth of smartphones has outpaced the growth of PCs. So more people are accessing the internet from their smartphone than from their PC. So that's pretty big. I mean, I know for us, we do a lot of high volume hiring. So our call center is folks who maybe have never actually had a PC in their home before, ever. And to apply to a position, they're maybe going to the library or borrowing somebody's computer. So the fact that they can now apply on their mobile device is a game changer for them, or it's a whole new world. And if they've got the choice between applying to our job on mobile or a similar position with another company at the library, I think that I can probably guess who they're gonna pick. So I think that just as every year you're going to start to lose out if you are not on mobile, those types of situations that I just gave an example for.
So I guess the Aussie got this slide because it has alcohol in it. So some stats, some interesting stats, and you'll understand why. 66% of Americans actually consume alcohol on a weekly basis. Okay, fall into that. But I'm Australian, so that's okay. The other one is 67% of 18 to 34 are drinking 5.4 average drinks per night. The older guys like me, 72% drinking 3.6. Why is this relevant? Does anybody want to have a guess? Indeed did a snapshot. When does the mobile traffic spike? And it spikes after 7 p.m. when they've left work until like 3 o'clock in the morning. When someone's down at the pub, someone's at home, whatever they're doing, but internet traffic to Indeed spikes after hours. These are people who've been drinking 5.4 drinks after hours to now come to a career site and possibly apply for a job on your site. So you want to make it as simple as possible when it comes to how do you draw people in? How do you make it simple? And now you start talking about talent and you start talking about the different types of roles. This is where it was really interesting as we were building this presentation. A lot of the roles are similar. We both have technical dev and QA roles. I have a salesperson. Jesse has an account manager in a different type of role. I don't have clinical. We may need some psychiatrists and psychologists occasionally, but we don't have the clinical. We have the operations as well. Enterprise sales for me, professional services. So a lot of it was where is the talent. So we have to really look at everybody is coming to your site, whether you like it or not. The data that we just shared with you, people are going to sites via a mobile phone. So if you're not there, they're still coming whether you're not there or not. And that's what's really interesting. And the type of technology person or the type of person coming to your role is across the board. Doesn't matter what industry you may be from as well. The talent that you're seeking is still coming to you at some point and looking at your career site.
So what changed in our worlds in terms of this shift to mobile? I think we've talked about it, and there was a lot of similarities for us, but for Express Scripts in particular, the thing that really kind of kicked it off was this acquisition. So we acquired a company and we were going to double in size, and with that, we were tripling our locations and just adding so much complexity across the board. We were doing a ton more hiring, and something had to change. I think the rest of these three things hold true for me as well. More competitiveness of talent. You got this end user who is already on mobile, waiting for you to get there, and then we're all focusing on improving this candidate experience.
And then when you throw the generation differences at this problem. We did an offsite a couple of weeks ago, and we had a guy named Jason Dorsey come in and present on the different generations. And that gave me a very different perspective, a deeper perspective of the importance of mobile for the younger generation. So how you're interacting with that younger generation, which is ultimately we're going to have 4, possibly 5 generations in the workforce, and the fastest growing is going to be the Gen Ys. The mobile platform is what we really have to start thinking about and incorporating those generational differences in the strategies as well. So to build up to this, there's probably a third of the people in the room had some sort of mobile platform, but really this is not something you can just sort of turn on tomorrow. Yes, you might have some sort of mobile optimized site, you may have an app, you may have a few different things, but it's really about building up. Neither of us were able to go from point A to point Z, or is it Z, in one jump. We had to walk through the hoops. We had to start with SEO platforms. We had to be able to track the volume of traffic coming to us. What's our drop-off rates on applies, all those sort of things. We were building different talent communities, so if you're bringing people in, how do you make sure you capture them up front with all of their information? A lot of us at the beginning had a bad candidate experience, and part of that, as you'll see, the walkaways for you is to think about that experience from a process perspective on the way through. To get to where we are today, you can actually buy sites, as both of us have done, that integrate back into our ATSs, or you can go and build them yourself. You need to decide whether you want to be able to just do search to start with, or search and apply, because they're two very different processes. And then your process on desktop. If your process is really horrible on a desktop, it's going to be even worse on a mobile. So if it's taking you half an hour to do it on a desktop, it's going to take you longer on a mobile phone, and more complicated, because you've still got to answer the same questions, and you can't jump and click around on a mobile platform as you could. And then you need to getting into sort of the optimized sites. How do you, from the mobile platform, link off to somewhere else? So it really is about the iceberg. And the issue with mobile is it's really the whole iceberg. We have the top of it is what we see as the interface problem. Very small real estate, lots and lots of information we need together. But that's the opportunity. Lots of information. How do we distill that information down to something that's usable? Who hasn't used Amazon in here? I'd say everybody would say yes. Amazon is a great example of how we can apply principles that have being used in the consumer marketing world for the last 20 years and apply them to recruiting. Because their desktop process is fantastic, and their mobile process is fantastic as well. So that's how you need to think about it. Both platforms need to be very, very streamlined to be able to get to that. So as I said before, you have to be easy to do business with. We all have some sort of what we think fancy front end on the desktop. For me, it takes 3.5 to 4 minutes to apply on my career site on the desktop, and it takes about a minute longer on the mobile phone. And that's because there's been a lot of work done behind the scenes to streamline that. Here, there's a couple of different things we've sort of thought about. Is what do we want to talk about up front? And I'll cover that a little bit later as well, but I want to drop a hint right now, is you really need to understand your audience. What works for my industry may not work for you, because I know in the high-tech space it's a very, very competitive marketplace. I really have someone's attention for probably 30 seconds, and if I've lost their attention, then they're going to go away to somebody else. And you need to think about that and what your talent is going to be doing for you, to what sort of information you give to them at the front end. The other thing you also want to think about is how do you track that? And we'll share with you some of the different types of metrics that you need to think about differently on mobile than on desktop, because it's a lot more about performance of how long someone stays on a page, but then also where do you shoot them back? We are very transparent when it comes to what's Informatica like as a place to work. So we have Glassdoor smack in the middle, because we want to push them out to Glassdoor so they can go and see the reviews on us, and then they can still come back and search and apply. So there's lots of different things. This isn't just a cookie cutter that you can say, go, apply it, set it up next week. But hopefully by the end of the day, or the end of today's session, you at least know some things that you want to walk away with. So
just to give you a peek into our journey at Express Scripts, started in 2011 when we had this acquisition that was going to double our size, and at that point we had a static career site that consisted of about 2 pages, and we had a direct link into our ATS, but certainly no experience there. We had some SEO landing pages that were branded and used for various areas of the business for recruiting. But we just needed to get to a decent front-end platform and get a job search, get the basics. And so we did that in May of 2012. So great, we're kind of at least on the map, or on the internet, I guess. It took a whole nother year, but we then moved to a mobile optimized job search, which was a big step for us. You can now search our jobs directly from your phone, from your tablet. But the coolness kind of stopped there, because after that you couldn't apply. You had to either email for full application or send the job to a friend, which you're the one that wants to apply, right? So why are you sending it to your friend? But it took a whole nother year after that until we moved to the mobile optimized apply. And so this just most recently took place in June 2014, and now you can use that same search that we implemented last year, search jobs from your mobile device, and when you get to the end process, it says mobile apply. So candidates can, at that point, they click apply, they are actually prompted then to upload a resume. And I know that you hear a lot about, you shouldn't have to require a resume for mobile apply. That should go away, that should be just move forward without it. But the technology that we used, the vendor that we used, allowed for a couple different options for the resume upload. So one, importing from LinkedIn, so directly from your LinkedIn profile. And then also uploading a resume from cloud-based storage, so like a Dropbox or Google Drive. They can also input their resume directly. So they're able to, seamlessly complete this process on mobile. So this was June, but since then, we've already realized, okay, it doesn't stop there. We have to think about every single interaction that we have with a candidate after apply. So what is being triggered from our ATS after the candidate applies? Maybe it's an assessment or an email related to their background check. So having to think, where could they possibly interact with us that's not optimized for mobile? And, so challenges continue to come up, and just work through those as the best you can. There's going to be some things that come up that you can't fix, but you have to do the best that you can to change your communications to candidates so that you're kind of minimizing any negative experience they might have. So an example of that for us was consenting to a background check. They got this email saying, please consent, and then they went in to click through, and because our ATS isn't optimized for mobile, they literally couldn't click the button. It wasn't like it was a bad experience, it couldn't be done. So just thinking through those types of things are sort of the point that we're at right now.
So if you're going mobile, the first thing is really to simplify your process, simplify your apply. As I said before, if you already have a bad apply on desktop, it's going to be worse on mobile. And that was the very first thing we did. And it took a long time. It took a good 4 to 6 months to really go through what are the fields that we really do need now, not what we want to get now. There's a difference. What do we need versus what we want? So we really sort of streamlined that process. That's how we got down to a very, very short apply time. So you really need to think about that, and that's not easy lifting. That's a bit of work you've got to do up front. It's basic Six Sigma. Then you also, while you've got them, you want to be able to connect to their talent network somehow. So you've captured them. How do you make sure you have that information for next time, even if they don't finish the apply? So whether it's a business card, whether it's some sort of information that they may want to push through into your CRM system, whatever that may be, but capturing information about them, even if they don't finish the apply. And what I see, the drop-off rates on mobile is much higher than what I have on the desktop. So there's still work that we need to do to increase the conversion rates on the mobile platform. And then for me, it's about being transparent. The linkages out to Glassdoor, what it's like to work for the company, be transparent with that. But it's also about creating company awareness. And there's some different things in here. I'll get to the last bullet point. Is initially when I went out with this platform, I was trying to get the brand in the palm of my hand. So what I would see as a candidate on the desktop, I really wanted to see what was going on the mobile platform. Well, we were on for a year and we did a clickstream analysis, which showed us who was clicking where, what was the dwell time for certain things. And what's interesting is some of the data I shared with you earlier, how people want more than just apply and search. That wasn't what I was getting a year ago. So my point behind that is this is changing. This is changing so fast because, Cindy, who does a lot of the branding for me, sitting in the front, we were ready to redesign this based on last year's data and last year's clickstream because I was saying, well, we need the full brand. But now we do need the full brand because I think what's happening is more people are catching up. So people are now catching up. There's more of it out there. People go to a mobile site and go, okay, this is easy, I'll come back. Or they'll see another company, okay, I'll come back. So it's getting easier every day. So you have to be very much aware of the metrics that you gather to see what's really working for you. So we will put more content on the mobile site. That still may change again in a year's time. We'll do another clickstream to see who's sitting on what areas of the career site to see what's going on. The other things that you need to be aware of is if you're not on the same vendor or you're on certain vendors, you need to think about the redirection. That can take a good few months depending on the vendor. And what that means is if someone's on a PC and they come to the site, they just go straight through, especially if you have some sort of SEO front end. If you've got multiple vendors, so in Jessie's case, she's got one vendor that does the SEO front end and the mobile. I have two. And the redirection into it to then redirect to the mobile carrier, you need to be aware of that can take a little bit of time depending on the vendor you have. So if you are thinking about this, make sure you ask that question very, very early is, will the redirection to the mobile platform be a problem? It was for my previous vendor, but it's no longer now. So that's something that's pretty important to know ahead of time, because if you're working to a schedule, you may find that you actually don't get there. So some of the analytics, and again, this is challenging for me because I'm not on one vendor. So I actually have desktop vendor, metrics on one platform and mobile on another. If I had to do this again, I probably would think differently about trying to keep them all together. But similar to what you would get on a desktop, you want to know about the visitor traffic. Where's the visitors coming from? What channels are they coming from? What sort of times of the day are they coming from? The thing with mobile is return visitors. On a desktop, the return visitor count is not that important. But on a mobile, this is a good indication of how good your processes are, or how good your career site is to bring people back. So if I'm getting, in this situation here, these numbers, 5,500 last year versus around the same this year, versus 34,000 new, I want to keep bringing new people in, but I also want to bring the returning users back as well, and that will actually start to drive organically up your traffic. And then the other one is around the different channels, so the source channel. So Indeed, referral, LinkedIn, whatever they may be, how are they getting to you? I think it's still very early days when it comes to cookieing technology on the mobile platform, but there are starting to be some pretty cool vendors out there that can allow us to do tracking on a mobile phone and start to do what marketing's been doing for years, to start driving traffic back to the candidates to bring them back in. So that's where those channels, the source channels, become pretty important. And then how long and how many and what type of pages they're actually staying on. I can't see this, I'm going too blind. But the number of page views someone's coming in, the pages they're visiting, and then how long they're staying, your dwell times. So again, same tactics as marketing has been using for a long time, but that will tell you whether the content you're posting up there is relevant to that audience. And then the apply rates. So who here knows what their drop-off rates are on desktop? Someone applies. How many of them actually finish the apply? Anybody? No one? Yeah, one. Wow. So that's something that you absolutely want to know on both platforms, because you want to know how many people are getting through the gate and then actually walking through the gate. If you don't know that, you don't know where your problems are with the funnel. So at the moment, I have a 63% pass-through. I don't know whether that's good or bad, because I've only just been able to collect these metrics on the mobile platform. I know what it is on my desktop, and it's much higher. But these are some of the sort of metrics that are a little bit different on the mobile platform, because you're really looking for the performance of the page, how many times that return visitor is going to come back to it, because you still have to be able to suck them back into your world in some way, shape, or form.
And just to add to that, I think that looking at those analytics, I didn't realize that moving to a mobile application would allow us to have all that data. So we didn't have that kind of data before, but I think that now, bonus is we have, or maybe, I don't know if the bonus is the application or is the data, but the data is so, critical for us. So we can see source data, we can see all the things Brad was talking about. So really is a big game changer for us.
And the responsive design. You have a number of different ways to do this. You can have build a site and responsive, so as you reduce the size of the screen, it will naturally shrink. You can have a vendor that just has built the platforms for mobile. You can have a native app. That was one thing that if you saw on the slides earlier, the data slides, there's a lot more people saying they're willing to download a native app. I wouldn't have thought that a year ago. I'm not sure if I was a job seeker, I would want to go and load 4 or 5 different company apps. But people are saying that they would be more willing to download a native app. And there is certainly some advantages of a native app versus a mobile optimized. And the major difference is the ability to push. When it's an optimized page, it's really just like a website, just happens to be a small browser. When it's a native app, you can absolutely push things to them, whether it be a talent community, whether it be a message. You know, I'm not sure about you, but I don't like seeing a little 1 or a 2 sitting on one of my icons, especially on the front page. And that's something that you can start to push out to have people have more visibility to you and your messaging coming through the mobile platform. The other thing that's really important is job descriptions. Now, there was an interesting stat. I was looking at some of the data from the Candy Awards this year, and one of the questions in the Candy Awards was, what is still the most important thing that a job seeker uses when it comes to looking for a job? Job description. 75% of respondents said JD. And I assume there's a lot of people in the room that are recruiters. I know some of my recruiters in the room, that's not the thing that we spend so much time on. But we should, because that's where most people get the nuggets of what the job is in some way, shape or form. So when you now take a JD that could be quite lengthy, you now have to synthesize that to be much smaller. And the research that I've done is 300 to 400 words. If you go beyond 300 to 400 words in a JD on a mobile platform, you're below the fold probably too many times, and now you're going to be part of that drop-off statistic. So there's a lot of nuances that go backwards and forwards when you have to think about the size of the screen and then how easy is it for someone to be able to read that screen and the type of words that are on there. Mobile direct we already talked about. That's something that you need to be aware of. The combined mobile metrics, again, I know what my percentages are of both platforms, but I've got to go to 2 separate systems to do that. It would be nice to be one. And at the end of the day, and it's the old adage, if it's a pig and you put lipstick on it, it's still a pig with lipstick. And that's your apply process. If your apply process is still a pig, it doesn't matter what you do on a mobile platform, it's still going to be difficult for that person to come through and apply to that job. So that's a pretty important step.
So what's next? Actually, think of this more as what's now and what's next, because a lot of these things are actually, happening now, but just with lower adoption rates. But will certainly, grow over the next few years. So, engaging the talent community via mobile. This is really anything that you would be pushing out to your talent community. Is it on mobile? If it's not, it should be. So for us, a good example of this, we launched a career newsletter just this past year, and it's a quarterly newsletter that we set up a mobile sign up for. So opt in to receive this newsletter via mobile, and then the newsletter itself is being sent out and is optimized for mobile. And from that newsletter, we've got set millions of links. So is that going to take them to a mobile optimized site? Interviews. So whether you are doing a live interview or recorded interview for mobile, HireVue or Skype, something like that. Those are some things that you should be thinking about mobile before. Just engaging managers, employees, talent. I just think this is just kind of continued evolution of what we're already seeing. Everyone's on the go, everyone's on mobile, whether you are emailing them or talking to them through LinkedIn or other platform. It needs to be quick, it needs to be instantaneous. Everybody's online all the time. Other mobile optimized areas, so referrals, if you've got a referral portal in place, referral program in place, whether it's for the candidate or for the employees, is that mobile optimized? It should be. Careers blog, so we have a careers blog that we launched around the same time as the job search, and that too is mobile optimized. So this is probably one that I think maybe more people that you would naturally think about putting mobile, because if you're tweeting, for example, check out our careers blog. If you're sending out a tweet, chances are somebody is looking at that tweet on their mobile phone. Chances are they're going to click on that link on their mobile phone, and if you're not optimized, then there you are. So research really shows that around 10% adoption right now for a lot of these things, but in the next 3 years, that should move to about 60% adoption. So you see how quickly things will be moving. And then as far as what else is next, I think so many different things. It's hard to say, but I think that the entire application process and resumes themselves could look vastly different in the next couple of years. I mean, job descriptions, like Brad was talking about, they're too long for the mobile culture, and the process itself is just, it's too lengthy. I mean, we've moved to mobile optimized, but I still think there's a lot of improvement with, how can we maybe shorten that application, and resumes, for example, too. It's so convenient to be able to bring in your resume from your LinkedIn profile. So will a paper resume even, be needed in the next 2-3 years? Maybe it's actually just you're bringing in your resume. It's just on a mobile or on a social profile, or maybe it's in some sort of way directly in your phone, and you just attach it. I don't know if we're going to be seeing resumes the same way that we have. I don't know if you have anything to add to what's next.
Yeah, it's the thing that comes to my mind is what I said before about generations. Just thinking about how to engage someone that's on their phone 24/7, maybe not 24, but probably 24/7. Yeah. How do you engage with them as a candidate, I think, is just a difference for us to think about. I know for me it's been, probably cookie cutter. One strategy suits all, but listen to this Jason Dorsey guy put me in a very different frame of mind. Haven't come up with a lot of answers yet as how we would do it differently, but I think tailoring to your market, tailoring to the types of people that you're bringing in and being where they are, I think that's where we're going to have to really start to think differently.
Yeah. So in summary, I think seamless integration, we've talked about that, it's the key to success. So whether somebody is coming to your site to learn about you, learn about your company, they're actually moving forward with the apply, or they're just interacting with you, you need to make sure that they can complete all those processes or navigate all those processes via mobile. In this mobile strategy, like I said, it's not a luxury. It's not a nice to have, it's a must have. So, but at the same time, you need to think about your all-encompassing strategy and making sure that it's a part of that. Because there certainly might be people who aren't on mobile. I mean, I don't know, I'm not sure what company has nobody who's going to be on mobile, but maybe you feel like, this demographic or this group just isn't on mobile. But I would also just challenge you to think twice about that, because maybe you assume, well, they're not on mobile, they're this, they're this age, they're in this industry. You might be surprised. You might think it doesn't apply to you or that talent, but it really might. So as part of that, just know where your talent hangs out. Find that out, find that information out, because at the end of the day, the candidate experience trumps all, and it's about tailoring kind of what you've heard today, and seeing how that will work for your organization. And your unique talent and prospective talent.
And as we've sort of shown, it doesn't matter what industry you're in, we're all in the same boat. We're all in the same boat together, and we're all struggling with the same things. So again, I would think that it doesn't matter what industry you are, in some way, shape or form, you're going to have some volume of people coming to you via a mobile platform. And it's just how you manage that and how you extrapolate that data to be something good for you to turn into an executive decision somewhere else. So there, I guess, the big things that we've learned over the last couple of years. Questions. Okay. So for people that know me, I'm opinionated when it comes to technology. So my first reaction would be, I don't think any one vendor can do it today. The vendors that I've had in place for the last couple of years, it didn't exist then. I'm certainly not seeing any vendors today that could do a full suite. So I'm very much a best of breed sort of person and put best of breed in. What I am seeing is a lot more ATS vendors actually having the front ends via a mobile platform, at least to search and apply. So that's a good thing, because you don't have to go to a third party vendor. But then you still may have the problem of, is it SEO optimized? Are you drawing traffic in? If you're not, you may have to do other strategies to draw traffic into you. That's why for Informatica, 4 years ago when we put the first platform in, we were page 10 on a Google search. Who's going to scroll through 10 pages? Throw SEO, that brought us up to page 1, and using pay-per-click services drew you back in. But back to your question, I don't think there's any single vendor that can do it all today. So you still, in my mind, you would still have to use pockets of vendors to do the right things. If your industry is you just want to have apply and search, then that may be okay. But if you need to be able to give information about the brand of the company and more about the information of what the person will be doing, sort of persona-based marketing, that platform may not be all that you need. So it really does come back to knowing your audience of where they are, and then really picking the vendor that can do it.
Have you experienced challenges in piecing together that data to get to know from, the source kernel tracking to higher?
Yes and no. I do a lot of stuff with source code tracking, up the wazoo. LinkedIn, I have 4 different source code trackings just for LinkedIn itself. And I have that with every other vendor. So I'm able to track, and that's one of the reasons I have an SEO or a recruiting marketing platform front end, so I can see all of the traffic coming through. I want to know how many visitors are coming, but I want to know where they're coming from. I'm talking to some vendors about deeper pixel tracking of how do I get deeper, and I think there is one vendor in the market that does sort of multi-hop source code, but I haven't seen that in large scale yet. So even if you have an ATS that doesn't have this on there or doesn't have a mobile front end, it will still improve your clunky ATS apply. That's what's good about this no matter what. So if you've got a really horrible ATS on your desktop, you can still sex it up by putting one of these platforms on the front and then do marketing to draw everybody to that platform. So there's a much easier way that you can draw talent back into your organization just by having a fancy front end, making it easy. Now you can start seeing the traffic that you're getting to that site. You can go back and start justifying why you may want to now do that on the desktop. So yeah, good question, thank you. What else?
Related to the vendor question, who do you guys use for ATS and your front end? Do you mind stepping up to the microphone, please?
It's not even on.
Who do you guys use for the front end and also your ATSs?
Yep, we use Taleo is our ATS, and then Jive is our mobile or our apply for mobile and desktop.
Yep. So I have a platform that's sunsetting, so I have Virtual Edge on the back end. So Virtual Edge is the ATS, which we having to replace because it's going to be sunsetting. On the front end of my desktop apply, I have Jive. So people come in through the Jive platform, and then on the mobile, I have iMomentus. So I have those 2 different vendors. So I get my mobile traffic through iMomentus, and I get my desktop through Jive. And I would love it in one. But there's also benefits of both vendors have different strengths and directions as well.
And even within our setup, we have actually our job search that is hosted. People don't even land in the application with Jive, our application vendor, until they hit apply. So the search is hosted by another agency. So your setups can look a lot different. I thought that might be an issue, and actually it's worked out really well for us. So sometimes you think that having it all in one vendor might be the best thing. Just in your mind, it's like it's all in this one spot, but ultimately it's who can do it better is going to make your life easier. So.
And there's so many startups happening every day. It's hard to think that one company can stay ahead of it all. That's why I sort of stick with best of breed. What other questions? I'm going to stand up on the mic.
Can you address the international mobile market where the phones are growing larger than the population? In other words, will that not be the trend as opposed to desktop? And if you're thinking of the future, would you not want to start that today?
Yep. So when you think about mobile now out of the US, so we have a big presence in India. And for a long time now, majority of the traffic that's coming to the career site in India has been on a mobile phone. And it's because they get faster internet responses on a mobile phone than they do at home. So that's been interesting. I've even seen over the last year or so that the shift from Android to Apple has happened. From the day that the people are coming to us, I'm seeing a bigger push to Apple in India than I have in the past, which would give me some sort of data as whether I would go and build an Android app or whether I would go and build an iPhone app or whether I would have to do both. Haven't gone down either of those native platforms yet, but it is something that we've had to think about because the marketing approach for India is going to be very different, even just a general strategy. But then when you throw an international different language, and one of the major reasons I sort of stay with iMomentus is the versions that they're doing with their mobile is a lot more tailored to what the audience needs to be. So we sort of didn't talk about some of the futures, but where some mobile vendors are going is depending on the geolocation you come in from and what your profile may be that you signed up, they'll give you a tailored look and feel. That's why I'm staying where I am on the mobile, because that's something that I want to give to candidates. Think of how fancy that would be walking into Berkeley and someone goes and looks at a job that's sitting on Berkeley and they see Berkeley's campus profile versus someone sitting down in the Bay Area. So there's a lot of different ways you can slice it, and with geotagging on the mobile phone, all those sort of things, and then you throw international, that adds a lot of complexity, but also a lot of opportunity. What else?
Scared of the mic. We were researching mobile apply through Mobolt, which was just acquired by Indeed. And they provide a uniform application process regardless of what ATS you're using. So in 2 years, when your contract's up with Taleo or whomever, you can still have the same candidate experience. But we're trying to have a uniform experience so that people can go either into apply as an active candidate or into our CRM as a passive candidate. And I was wondering if either of you are using a CRM in conjunction with your mobile apply and your ATS.
We are not using those in conjunction together. We're actually working on kind of linking our ATS directly with the CRM and hooking those two up. I don't know about Brad.
Yeah, we have a CRM in the back end. So when you apply, we push that data into both systems, the ATS and the CRM. You know, the thing that I hear from my recruiters is there's too many tools, so we want to try and streamline it to have as fewer tools as possible. So with 1 out of 10 people going to get hired, what happens to the other 9? They become prospects, so we push them through into the applicant tracking system. So yeah, we do push, as a data integration company, you would imagine we do all that. We do push the data all the way through from the talent community. Yeah.
I'm sure most of us have heard from various job posting vendors, there's more of a drop-off chance for an applicant the more clicks that they have to make.
Yep.
So in regards to the mobile application process, do you have any data that supports like an ideal amount of clicks for the entire application process from start to finish, or is it more just about the total time that it takes? And if it is more about the total time, then what is like an ideal time amount that it should take?
Do you want to answer that? Because I can.
I mean, as far as an ideal time, I think just shorter than whatever it is now. It's always shorter. I think ours is taking around maybe 12 to 15 minutes, maybe a little less. I think 10, getting it closer to 10 would be ideal.
So for me, it's definitely the duration on there, but it's not necessarily the number of pages. So in my analytics platform, desktop and mobile they're two different platforms. So I've just received the mobile version, and it does allow me to go down to each page and then a click. So I think it's 4 pages of information. And I think there's 18 questions in total of the whole application. But of those 18 fields of data, I think 12 of them are pulled in, whether it's through your resume passing, your LinkedIn profile, whatever, when you apply to the job. So if you can pass out 60, 70, 80% of that information, the amount of clicks to get through hasn't seemed to be a drop-off. So on desktop, we have a 15% drop-off rate. I had a 60% drop-off rate, 40% drop-off rate with my previous vendor. Now I've got it down to 15 because I was able to see the individual steps of which page would drop off, and I can see that same data now on the mobile platform. So that is going to be something that's on the radar next, of going in and tailoring the pages to make sure the right information is captured earlier. So if they do drop off, we've at least got something, but just making it simple, which sort of goes back to the original question of apply. If your apply process through your ATS, no matter what we do, the apply process in the ATS is still the Achilles heel. All we've done is put a nice fancy front end on it. So you've got to really fix that underlying process problem in your apply through your ATS before you can throw a Band-Aid on it and being a mobile front end. And then with your metrics, that's the things you want to be drilling into with your vendors, is how deep you can go in the metrics to see where the drop-off rates are. I can now see exactly the time someone was on the apply, or the first part. The first part in any apply is you have to log into your ATS. We still have to force people to log into the ATS. So if you can make that process as simple as possible, that was our biggest drop-off. So we tailored some, specifically on the desktop so far, some tweaks on that The second part was the resume upload or the profile upload. That was the second biggest drop-off. I haven't seen below that. I'm probably getting 1 or 2% drop-off below that, even on the mobile platform. So it's the sign into the ATS is the biggest burden, and then uploading the resume. And I'm still seeing, even on a mobile phone, about 80% will still use Dropbox to upload a resume versus logging in with a social profile, with a LinkedIn profile, which sort of makes sense because more people are having their online resumes now than ever before, but they're still using Dropbox to upload the whole thing. So I think maybe we as an industry need to educate our candidates out there of how we find them. Then they may use LinkedIn profile as their standard upload a lot more, and that's certainly advantageous for us. Good question.
Hi. I work with Koch Industries and we use Taleo, and we've not had any sort of friendly process. This thing is buzzing, sorry. And we're just now getting to the point where we're going to be creating a mobile platform. The challenge that we found with Taleo is we have none of that pre-planning information. I have no idea. Taleo has told me that there is no way within the search, well, after they leave the search page, so from page 1, 2, 3, however many pages we may have in our application process, to get the information of where candidates drop off, how long they're spending on those pages. So how can we, how did you get to a point to where you were able to get a mobile going with that ATS without having this pre-information, or how did you get it?
So the vendor that we're working with, they're given access to our Taleo environment and, complete the setup on their end in a way that they are able to get the data directly. So the Taleo was not involved. They were, they're just our ATS, but they haven't given us that type of data. We're not getting it from them. I don't know about.
So the thing that comes to mind with that question is it's about then the recruiting front end. That's the thing that gives you the metrics, because that's the stuff that's really connected to the outside world that tracks your traffic, tracks your visitors, tracks your source codes. In the past, a lot of front end, I just call SEO platforms, they measured just apply start, and then that's the metric I would get, but I only could tell in the ATS if they completed the apply. That's what I love about the vendors I have now, is it's not just a start apply, it's a complete apply, because we actually track the completed apply on the outside vendor before it comes in. So you would really need to have some sort of SEO platform on the front of that to really get those metrics. There are some vendors out there that do just the metrics that they would then pull out of Taleo to put that into something, or Google Analytics. You can do that through a Google Analytics platform if you want to go to that front end of doing it yourself. So there's some of those things you can do.
We do have the Google Analytics on the front end, but again, in the process of simplifying our application process, we don't know what pages are dropping off at the most, we have none of that information. So I was just curious as to how you met that challenge.
You can talk to either of the vendors up here, and they both do it.
So conversion rate was just about all that we did have through the ATS. So I don't know how advanced the analytics will be through the vendor that you're using, but certainly speak to kind of the different steps and where we're seeing people drop off. We're just really getting into our analytics, so it's still kind of an evolving process as far as where our trends are. Work history, I think, was kind of where we were losing some people. It's a pretty lengthy part of the apply, but I think it'll be interesting to see how that changes over time too.
Well, thank you very much for the first session of the day. Hopefully this was informative, and enjoy the rest of your next couple of days in San Francisco and at the conference. Thank you.